In order to see the call of God and what he wants you to do, you have to be able to spiritually see the circumstances you're in. That means it requires discernment. A lot of Christians don't discern what's happening in front of their very eyes because they haven't grown very much. So the key in getting spiritual sight is growth. Another thing is that limits people is they're cynical and bitter about life. And look, I agree with you. Life is difficult, and I think everybody in this room could explain it to anybody in their testimony that life has been very difficult. Yeah, you're right. That's how it is. It's true. It's really bad. And the older you get, the worse it does get. I get it, man. But here's the thing. Am I going to let my bitterness or my cynicalness towards life and my rebellion towards reality hold me back? See, that's what happens to people. They say, forget it. It's all going to Hades in a handbasket. I'm not going to do anything. Forget it. I'm just going to concern myself about myself, and that's all I worry about. That's very cynical. You can't let life do that to you. You end up bitter, and you will end up alone. People use that a lot of times to limit themselves. Or spiritually and emotionally immature. And that, again, it comes from not growing in the Lord. And have you noticed that a lot of people, they might be in a 50-year-old body, or a 60-year-old body, or a 70-year-old body, or a 40-year-old body, but they have the emotional wearings of a 15-year-old or a 12-year-old. We call that arrested development in counseling, that a lot of times they are so immature, they might be in an adult body, but they're at the age of 12 emotionally. Now, that will limit you, right? Lack of faith to seize the open door. So God will put before you an open door and he'll say, are you willing to take it? You know, it will require sacrifice and all kinds of things, but he will always put the open door in front of you. A lot of people just lack discipline. They don't want to do the right things in their life that would actually cause them to do the call of God. Hey man, the call of God's hard. You have to get up, you have to get dressed, you have to go to work, you have to do your life, and it's not a lazy man's job. If you're going to do the call of God, it requires you to work. It requires sacrifice. It requires a lot of things. And it requires a lack of passivity in your relationship with God. What do I mean by that? You have to pursue God. You have to go after him. You have to want him. You have to have spiritual hunger towards him. Those kinds of things help you in the call. So you get all this other things, excuses, lack of faith in God's provision, self-criticism, I'm not good enough, I can't do this. Envy of others who do not have our disadvantages. Well, if you're going to play that game, you're going to limit yourself all the time because you can always find someone that's doing better than you. But why don't you compare yourself downward? You see what I'm saying? Or hindrances stop us, excuse-making, rationalizing, lying to oneself, fear of judgment. I don't know. You just keep going on and on. Admit to do the right things, waiting for perfect conditions, not grateful for the opportunity, refuse to push through limitations, fear, laziness. You just go on and on. But whatever excuse you're using, it's not going to work. Because you're going to stand before the Lord and says, to whom much is given, for much will be required. To whom much has been committed, of him they will ask the more. Here we are in America, and we do have a lot of opportunities because when I travel, I see the lack of opportunities in Europe and different parts of the world. There is no better place than America. Absolutely. When you travel, this is it, man. You won the prize. We won it, okay? We won the lottery ticket by living in America. Please don't squander the opportunities that are afforded to you because when I go to Europe and I go to Australia and I go to these different places, they do not have the freedoms we have. They don't have the freedom of speech. They can't even run their air conditioning and their heater properly in their homes. It's so crazy. But again, we've been given a lot. The second thing I want to talk about is the call asks us to voluntarily take on the most challenging and sacrificial path God will put before us. Now, there's been a book called The Road Less Traveled. It's a very popular title. And the title of the book encaptures life. The life of sacrifice, because the call will require you to sacrifice. It's going to require you to give up something. And I don't know what that will be. But it probably will be something according to not your agenda, but God's agenda. You'll have to get off your agenda. You'll have to get off of your kingdom building. I talked to a lot of the people in Missouri, and a lot of their pastors, they tell me, because they're just cowards, I guess, but they won't talk about what's going on in the world. And that's their biggest complaint, that the pastor just, cowers in fear about talking about things. And they ask the pastor, well, why don't you say anything? Well, I don't want to run people off. And I said, you know what that's about? That's about nickels and noses. And so I go, that guy thinks that his church is his church rather than Christ's church. He thinks it's his ministry rather than Christ's ministry. He doesn't know what agenda he's on. He's on his own agenda. And I said, that's why he will not sacrifice, because the truth will divide. And so what you have to understand is whatever God's called you to do, you're going to be asked to sacrifice. And you're going to be asked to sacrifice the most precious thing to you. Do you know what that is? What is the most precious thing to you? You. Who's ever willing to find his life will lose it. Right? So the idea is, if you want to live, you must die. So Jesus is asking the ultimate sacrifice from you, which is your life. I need you to become a living sacrifice. These things say, he who is holy and he who is true, he who has the key of David, he who opens and no one shuts, and shuts and no one opens. I know your work. See, I've set before you an open door and no one can shut it. And when he opens that door, you must be willing to take the sacrifice to go through that door. That's the challenge. And the door will sit in front of you, but a lot of people won't go through that door because of the sacrifice required. And again, I went through all the excuses, and we can go through the excuses all over the place. But he will ask you of that if you're going to do the call. The other thing about the call, it requires harmonious social functioning with others. It requires you to be integrated with other people. You will have to work with other people. And then I put the little caveat, as much as it is within your ability, because Romans 12:18 says, if it is possible, and thank God he put that in there, right? If it is possible, because it ain't possible in some situations. It's just not possible. So don't think you have to be forced into relationships that don't work. Don't think that. As much as it depends on you, live peaceably with all men. Now, that's what we try to do. We're going to live peaceably with all men, try to, as much as it is within my power. But sometimes it's not within my power. The person's a knucklehead, they won't get their act together, and you just can't have a relationship with them. That's it. Thank God. But as much as it is possible, I have to have a harmonious, integrated relationship with other people. I'm not an island. I don't function alone, solo. The way the church is created, the way society is created, and the way the reality is created, you have to be integrated into relationships with other people. All of reality is about relationship. Have you noticed that? It's not about matter. It's not about time. It's not about space. It's about relationship. That's how God has related everything. So it's your relationship to other people. It's your relationship to God. It's relationship to anything in this world. And notice that in the church, it's the hardest place to find good relationships sometimes. Look at this church drama. They're on stage singing, and they get into a fight. Watch this.
A little bit. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Let everything, you're doing too much. That has breath. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Rashida, you doing too much. This is too much. This is too much what you're doing. So slow down, get on the beat, do what you're supposed to do. This is praise and worship. No. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I don't mind. I don't care that it's live. I don't care that it's live. I don't care that it's live. No. I don't care that this is live. No. I don't care that this is live. I don't care that this is live. No. Because I didn't forgive you for.
Yeah. I don't care if this is live. Rashida, you're doing too much. Right in church, life, doesn't matter. It's gonna do this brawl out, man. Rashida's doing too much. She's gonna put a clamp on Rashida, man. So, what's the deal, man? I mean, really, what's the deal? Well, since we're at a women's function, Let's talk a little bit about that. Well, and there's reasons behind this, obviously. But women cumulatively, across time, across culture, across anything, across history, are at a disadvantage to the society, to the cultures in which they grow up in, than men. That's just the way it is. And there have always been a disadvantage. And that's actually been studies done on this, whether you go all the way back to the ancient world or even to this day. Women know they're at a disadvantage in this world. They realize that, okay? And that realization is a vulnerability that women actually carry with them deep down inside. It makes them feel very insecure about things. And so what happens is that vulnerability, if the person doesn't trust God's protection, if the woman doesn't trust God's protection, she's susceptible to the temptation of being resentful, territorial, and jealous of other women. That's how it is. So if you came to see me in counseling, and you told me you have a problem with other women, this is where I would take you. I would say, you're probably feeling vulnerable, you probably feel insecure. We want to get down to where that insecurity and that vulnerability is. And first of all, if that is what's causing your conflict with other people. And typically it is. Not all the time. This is a general principle, but that's what happens. Men on the opposite don't generally feel that way. Now, you do find some men that are like that. You'll have the short man syndrome. You ever heard of that, right? Yeah, that's true. They usually have a problem, and they feel. It's a psychological thing. I'm just telling you, it's true. And they feel that way, and so they'll try to prove themselves in all different types of ways. But the quintessential example of vulnerability being, seen in the proper light is Mary. You talk about someone that was put into a vulnerable situation. She has the Holy Spirit come upon her, and she miraculously conceives the Messiah, right, through the Holy Spirit. Well, as you know, that's just going to set her up for stoning, right? They're going to think that she got pregnant outside of wedlock, and the penalty for that was stoning. And you think about how she handled that vulnerability, that insecurity, that, hey, man, you're going to die. And she handled it beautifully. Mary actually is the quintessential model for women of handling vulnerability. She is the most vulnerable woman you will see in Scripture because of carrying the Messiah. And she carried this vulnerability, the back talk about her, because even when Jesus was in his ministry, they made reference, the enemies of Jesus made reference to him being illegitimate. Remember that? Aren't you illegitimate? That went all through the village. Joseph married her and was, he prevented her from being stoned by marrying her, which was admirable on his part, and that's what a leader does. But she carried that stigma that Jesus was illegitimate and that she had gotten pregnant outside of wedlock for the rest of her life. She carried that stigma with her. So if you want to talk about anyone who was unfairly vulnerable, it's Mary. She's the quintessential example. And look at how she carried that vulnerability. She didn't lash out. She didn't get bitter. She didn't get angry. She carried that all the way through her life. And so she's the model that you want to look for. Unfortunately, we have these people that want to mock Mary, and you got, this USCC minister suggests Mary, Jesus' mother, was pro-choice and had freedom to choose. I mean, they always try to downgrade her, right? It's crazy. But anyway, let's move on. The call, whatever that is, will typically go against your personality. Okay? Now, that doesn't sound right. Well, yeah, when you look at your personality, it doesn't sometimes agree with what God's calling you to do. Moses, personality-wise, he's the reluctant leader. He doesn't want to lead, but yet he's being called against his personality to be the leader of Israel. So in that exchange with God, Moses is saying, I'm an introvert. I don't want to speak. I'm slow of speech. So that would be reminiscent of an introvert, not an extrovert. Aaron would seem to be the extrovert because he's willing to speak. Moses is not. So Moses is actually being called against his personality. And if you look at some of the personality types, you have neuroticism, extroversion, openness, agreeableness, conscientiousness, and you have all the markings of that. I'm not getting into a personality test right now, but what I'm just trying to say is, do not think that your personality determines your call. It doesn't. What I am doing right now is against my personality. My personality is an introvert. My personality is to be shy, is to sit in the back room and not say a word. But my call is to be called beyond my introvert, is to learn how to be an extrovert while my personality is railing against it. And that's how you have to think about your calling. So here's a little bit about women. Women tend to score higher on extroversion, warmth, sociability, and enthusiasm. Women typically score higher on agreeableness, cooperation, empathy, and kindness. But women also are high on neuroticism. Yeah. Sorry. Sensitivity, negative, anxiety-oriented, and emotional instability is the hallmark for most women. Maybe you're the exception. Maybe you're the exception to the rule. I don't know. But there's always positives and there's always a negative aspect. So the neuroticism in women, that is what you have to overcome. The negative emotions, the bitterness, the envy, the jealousy, all that stuff. Women are high neuroticism. But men have their problems, okay? Men have their problems. Men tend to score higher on conscientiousness, which is organizes, self-discipline, practicality. Practicality really weighs in on emotionality, okay? Openness to experience. Men are more open to that. Curiosity, creativeness, open-minded. Women are not, and that would make sense because women are more nurturing. And so they would be closed to experimenting or anything like that. That totally makes sense. But men are disagreeable. Okay? They don't typically get along. They are disagreeable, they're grumpy, and they turn into grumpy old men if that disagreeableness doesn't work through them. And men are introverted, typically, right? So men have to work through the introvertedness. So typically they don't want to be out on stage, they don't want to shake hands, they don't want to greet, they don't want to go to a Christmas party, they don't want to do that, right? It's all introverted. Okay. So the thing about it, and just I want to leave you before I go to the next one, is your call might go against your personality, and your gifting might go against your personality, and that's your job to overcome that. See, your personality can either be a liability or it could be a blessing, and you have to decide what your personality is going to be able to do. And if you decide, I'm not going to do the call because the call goes against my personality, then you won't be able to do the call. Moses wouldn't have been able to do the call unless he went past his introversion. 5, the call requires that we are integrated into the hierarchical structure of reality that God's created. So we got the integration into relationships, right? You need harmonious relationships in order to do your call. Because if you can't get along with people, you can't do your call. If you say, I'm going to serve Jesus, well, how you serve him will be how you serve others. That's how it works. But the other thing is the hierarchical structure. What do I mean by this? Well, let's talk about Adam and Eve real quick to understand the hierarchical structure in our relationships. Adam is to possess the authority, the spiritual authority. He applies the truth he hears from God in Genesis, and then Adam names the animals. And when Adam names the animals, what you're seeing is categorical order. You're seeing spiritual order, cognitive order, physical order based on the truth he hears from God, and he applies it to the animals by naming them, which indicates he has authority. Adam is also called to tend the garden. That term tend the garden is is the same Hebrew term for a high priest that would monitor the temple precincts. And the idea is he's to apply boundaries and limitations on the garden. He is supposed to protect the garden from intruders. And he brings unity because of those boundaries and protection. That's what Adam is supposed to do. That is the model for every male. Okay, that's what's supposed to happen. Unfortunately, we know males don't typically do that. We call that the Adam syndrome when they don't do that. When they don't protect, they don't speak up when they should, they don't apply boundaries and limitations, we're dealing with Adam syndrome. Okay, let's go to the female, Eve. So Eve is the helpmate, and what her job is, as the helpmate, is to bring compassion to Adam, to use her emotions that God gave her. Remember, high on neuroticism, which means emotional, but those emotions are a good thing because men are not that way. The men have to be told what's going on, right? Okay, so the quintessential example is you would take the problems the kids are having and bring it to the man and make him aware that your daughter or your son is having problems over here and I'm making you aware of them. That's actually how the helpmate works, because men are not in tune emotionally with what's going on. Again, they're dealing with practicality. They're not dealing with that. They're dealing with truth and boundaries and limitations. So your caring nature is what gives voice to the vulnerable, okay? Women give voice to the vulnerable. They give voice to the weak. They give voice to the marginalized and the distressed. And they bring that to Adam and say, here's what's happening. I need you to give me the boundaries and limitations to address the issue. Okay? That's how it works. That's what we call complementarianism in theology. That's how they work. Okay. Here's the problem. When the masculine is unchecked by the feminine, it devolves into apathy or totalitarianism. The man will become either apathetic or he becomes completely totalitarianism in the home. So one of the two. So you might have lived with an apathetic man, or you might have lived with a totalitarian if they're not doing their job, okay? Hopefully you had a good balance, maybe, that someone did their job. But that's what happens. But here's the thing. When the masculine will not put down boundaries and limitations, which is the non-use of authority, then the feminine is then unchecked in her desire for authority, because that's what God said your desire will be for his position. And then the chaos principle will ensue. What do you mean? The woman is bringing the vulnerable, compassionate emotions to the male, and the male refuses to put boundaries and limitations. Then what will happen is the compassion and the emotions will have no boundaries. And therefore, the woman will get out of control because no one's putting boundaries on her. Her compassion will go too far. She will want to take care of everyone. And we call that codependency, okay? It devolves into chaos. So the male, if he doesn't do his job, can either bring apathy or totalitarianism. The female, if she goes awry, can bring chaos. Isn't it funny? In our culture, the same two principles are at work right now. You have chaos being introduced with no boundaries and limitations on people. Do anything you want, at any time you want, with whatever you want, with whomever you want. That's a female principle. At the same time that's happening, you have a totalitarian regime that's telling me how to run my air at home. That's totalitarianism. So at the same time chaos ensues, you have totalitarianism popping up at the same time. Oh, that's right. The Whore of Babylon and the beast system, yeah. So here's the interesting thing. When a woman, since we're talking about women, will not integrate into the hierarchical structure, she becomes the Whore of Babylon. What do you mean by that? Well, I'm using a metaphor, not literally. But what is the Whore of Babylon? She's the harlot. She introduces false religion, and by introducing false religion, she upsets the order that God's established. The hierarchical order is upset by the Whore of Babylon. She introduces chaos. So that's what the metaphor is trying to say. When a woman is unchecked, she turns into the Whore of Babylon by introducing chaos into her life and into everyone else's life. Okay? That's what happens. And we have examples of this. Liberal feminists protest Trump administration by sterilizing themselves. Okay, who's that supposed to hurt? I don't get it. These same people, like I said, the article said, preach a bodily autonomy, yet they've chosen a method of defending it to undermine their own future freedoms with irreversible procedures. So stupid. They're so stupid because they think Trump's going to take away the ability to abort and he's going to take away birth control. And so they're freaked out, and so they want to have sex, so they're going to sterilize themselves. How stupid. Again, that is Whore of Babylon thinking, okay? And again, I'm not using it as a pejorative of women. It's a metaphor of introducing chaos. That's chaotic. You're going to sterilize yourself? Who's thinking? Where is the boundary and limitation? Oh, that's right. There's not a male voice. So it's not necessarily a male or female thing. What you have to understand, it's a principle thing. It's a male principle and a female principle, okay? Look at this. A FEMA director compared Trump signs to vicious dogs to justify skipping homes. What do you mean? Well, the hurricanes that hit North Carolina and Florida and different things, FEMA went from house to house, and if they had a Trump sign, they skipped it. Did you hear that? That's what she admitted. Because she said it was like having a vicious dog in front of that. They didn't know what they were going to get. So she admitted skipping people who had Trump signs. That is the feminine principle out of control. Right there. That's the feminine principle out of control. That's chaos, right? And endangers. So when the hierarchical structure, there's no truth and love involved in it, then you devolve into power and chaos. Power will come from the male side, and the chaos will come from the female side. That's how it works. And Satan knows how to do it. Now here's the thing. When a male abuses his power and authority, whether it's over abuse or under abuse, then it causes insecurity among women. And they distrust males, and they distrust all authority. So when a man doesn't do his job, it really messes the mind of the females up, especially daughters. So you grow up in a household where either the guy's pathetic, he's a worm, he won't do anything, that kind of dad. He's just has no spine, he has no background, backbone, he won't put boundaries and limitations on anything. That makes the females feel insecure because he's not protecting. Then you have the overbearing, authoritarian, totalitarian type of dad. And that does protect, but it overdoes it. And so the females are afraid because they lose all control because he's got all the control. He never gives any freedom out in a totalitarian regime. So they're hunkered down, scared to death of his power. So either way, the passive male or the overpowering male messes up the female mind. One is unprotected, one is overprotected and scared of that power. Hence, this is where the female problem's happening in our culture. Females generally that have went through that don't trust males and they don't trust authority. And so they have authority issues. So they deal with that. That has to be overcome because here's what happens. Not every male in your life is like your father. You have to come to grips with that. Otherwise, you're going to broad brush every male on the planet. And hey, I get it, man. A lot of males right now are passive, extremely passive, right? And it's passive like we've never seen before. Because why? They've attacked masculinity and dumbed it down and feminized it. And yet, that's what the feminists wanted, and then you end up with a metrosexual male type of guy, right? And then he disappoints all females because he can't protect. He can't stand up. He can't do his job. And so the women then become more insecure. And so now we're going down this vicious cycle in our culture of women saying, I want a real man, and I don't want this metrosexual type of guy that can't protect me. That's a problem. And that's what happens because it starts with the Adam syndrome. So for instance, like you'll see this, Jay-Z accused of raping a 13-year-old girl with Sean Diddy Combs at drug-fueled party. And you've heard about the P. Diddy stuff. Well, now it's all coming out. But what I want you to think about the 13-year-old. How is she going to view males if she doesn't process that properly with truth? Right? She will just blanket, these males are untrustable. It might drive her into lesbianism. Because that's what happens, because they're afraid of that power. Here's the thing, though. You have to understand, then, that all males are not like that. Because if you allow yourself to broad brush all authority, all males in that pattern that you saw growing up, then you will become uncorrectable and unteachable. Because that's a natural reaction. If I'm not going to listen to authority, and I don't trust authority, then how will you trust anyone in front of you telling you the truth? You won't. I watch these ladies on these news programs, and they're being flat out told the truth, like the women on The View. Like, all those women do not trust. They're man-haters. They distrust authority. They distrust, and I know why. I know why. Like Whoopi Goldberg has said she was molested or something. I get why. She hasn't processed that, and so she doesn't trust men. None of them on The View do. None of them. And so when they're corrected by somebody, do you think they're correctable? No, they're unteachable. Whoopi Goldberg or Sunny Hostin or any of those on The View, they're uncorrectable. It doesn't matter if the truth is staring them in the face. Or like Liz Cheney. Here's another one. So I'm giving you the hyper examples of women who distrust authority. Liz Cheney, accused of destroying 117 January 6 files, says she shouldn't go to jail. By all rights, she probably should go to jail. But one of the things is she doesn't trust authority. Anyway, how about Ana Navarro, Whoopi Goldberg? We have panic over Trump. We should tell people to prepare. They're acting like he's going to put people in jail and round everyone up. It's crazy. This is a frightened woman that is unjustifiable. She's become irrational, which means probably from a counseling standpoint, she has no male in her life corralling her emotions. She's all over the place. Whereas a male would say, wait, now, hold on here. Stop. You're going too far. You're going way too far with your emotions. There's no male in her life doing that. If she is married, I guarantee he's metrosexual. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Because you couldn't be that out of control. You couldn't be that out of control with a real male in your life. Rosie O'Donnell, okay? Rants about her face herpes, UFOs, claims she's taunted by MAGA. Now, the reason she says she has face herpes is because of the MAGA stress that's been put on her. It's all the stress in her life that's caused her facial herpes. That's a female out of control, okay? And we know that. And I think Rosie O'Donnell also admitted that she had been molested, right? Yeah. So I'm saying what with these women, if they have been molested or raped, they haven't worked through those issues and processed that with truth and a counselor and therapy. And typically, if they don't do that, they act like that. That is called chaos. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm referring. Defund the police activist begs for help after everything she owns is stolen from her San Francisco, and social media replies are savage. So she wanted to defund the police, and then she got ripped off. And she wanted to say, where's all the police? Well, it's like you're the one who asked for no police. And you can tell by the picture of her that her emotions have taken her over, and she's wearing a mask still. That's out of control. Okay, so couple reactions. The woman can either say all males are bad and I don't trust authority, or the female can process with truth and get through all of that. That's the goal. Or the other one is the woman takes on the role of a slave to appease the male tyrannical authority. And you've probably seen a lot of women become doormats to the tyrant, right? You probably have seen that. So you've probably seen both. The doormat type of woman, and I've seen plenty of them in counseling, and then I see the other woman that's completely out of control because Casper Milquetoast is not controlling anything at home. So you have both aspects, right? So you either, as a woman, you don't want to think it's binary, that I either become a slave or I'm out of control. You become a negotiator. We don't want to become a tyrant and wield power, and we don't want to be a slave either. I become a negotiator. I negotiate with authority. See, women, you're great at negotiating, but a lot of women are afraid to negotiate. They want to either be in control fully, 100%, or 100% slave. And that's not, either one is extreme. So here's the thing. If the male underuses his power and authority, underprotects, neglects, fails to do it, it will cause resentment, and the temptation for the woman is to try to wield his power that she absolutely cannot control. And she becomes the queen of hearts, right? She off with their heads. Off with their heads. Everybody, get out of my way, right? It's like, wow, whoa, where's she coming from? And it's just off the chart, man. Like, what are you doing? It's because she has seized a power that she can't control. It's like the Lord of the Rings. No one can hold the ring other than Frodo. If someone gets their hands on it, they can't control it. It's out of control. It starts taking them down. It's that. Most people can't control power. It's too much for them, especially one that's not theirs. For instance, when God said to Eve, your desire will be for your husband. What is that desire? A desire for that power, that authority. And it is a power that you cannot control. It will thrash you if you try to grasp it. So, we have to overcome the Eve syndrome. Men have to overcome the Adam syndrome, but women have to overcome the Eve syndrome and be the ideal woman, mother, nurturer that Mary is. So why I gave you the contrast, the metaphors, you have the whore of Babylon, right? She introduces chaos into the world. And then you have Mary, who is the second Eve. Have you picked up on that? She is the second Eve. Okay? She is showing how Eve should have acted. And what Eve did in the garden is take all power unto herself. She took it all onto herself without Adam. And Adam let it happen. So what you see with Mary is she becomes the second Eve, and she says, may your will be done unto me. That's the opposite, right? The humility attitude. You tell me, Lord, what you want me to do. I'll bow a knee to that. Versus Eve saying, I'll decide what's wrong, right and wrong. Totally different ballgame, right? So when you're looking at Mary this Christmas time, she is the second Eve. She is how Eve should have acted. She's the quintessential. Look, I want you to think about it, about the importance of Mary. I come from a Roman Catholic background, so I'm not trying to hyper-venerate Mary. I'm not doing that. But I want you to understand the reason God picked Mary for the last 6,000 years of human history, he picked this girl, this woman, to bear the Messiah. That means there's something different about her. And it's her humility. It's her ability to be integrated into the hierarchy. And even if it costs her her reputation, she's willing to be integrated into that hierarchy. I will submit to that hierarchy, even though they might stone me to death. That's it. That's the best example you can get. That's who you're looking towards. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. What is meekness? It's the idea of that bridle in that horse's mouth. You see that bridle? The Greek is trying to say that horse is a very powerful animal. But with a bit in his mouth, you can control that power. That's what meekness is. Meekness is power under control. Ladies, you do have a certain amount of power. It's not the power of your counterpart with the male or your husband, but you do have a certain amount of power. But you must wield it properly. You must wield it integrated into authority and under that authority. Otherwise, it's the horse without a bridle. And that horse without a bridle, he's a massive amount of power, and he just gets unleashed. And you can't control him if he doesn't have a bit in the mouth. That's what meekness is, right? Here's what happens. The feminine principle of compassion, if they do not get structure from the male and the guidance from the male, or the masculine principle, what ends up happening is they will devolve into undiscerning care for everything and everyone with no boundaries and limitations. Okay? That's what ends up happening. Eve is trying to use her compassion with the serpent. And what ends up happening is the compassion goes out of control. Does that remind you of anybody? Do you have one of the? I have one in my family. It's in the making right now. My wife is actually in the making. Oh, wait, is she here? Oh, never mind. If I didn't limit the animals we have, we would end up like that. If I didn't put the boundaries and limitations. Because I think my wife loves the cat better than she likes me, I think. But you've heard of the infamous cat ladies, right? Yeah. Do anyone in this room want to become a cat lady? Because that means no one's putting you can't take care of 12 cats. You can't. You can't take care of 15 cats. You can't. You can't do it. Ladies, I'm just telling you, don't do it. You can't. So that's an example. So the feminine principle is this. I can take care of everyone. I'm an all-encompassing mentality. This is the whore Babylon type of, I'm all compassionate. I'm all tolerant. I'm diverse. I'm inclusive. I'm equity. I'm no one left behind. Love is love. Freedom to do whatever I want to do. All cultures are on par with each other. Borderless world. There is no such thing as illegal immigrants. All people, including foreign nationals, are Americans. America can welcome everyone from the world into the country. Education is a human right. Healthcare is a human right. A living wage is a human right. That is the feminine principle out of control. There's no boundaries and no limitations. It's cat lady on steroids. Okay? That's what it is. And so we've even seen this in the government, right? So you have a borderless country and letting all these people come in, oh, we'll take care of them. Who's going to pay for that? Right? We are. But see, the feminine mindset says, I can take care of everybody. I can take care of all the cats in the neighborhood. No, you can't. You can't do that. You can't. Here's an example of no boundaries and limitations. Kathy Hochul proposes $300 in inflation refund payments. Sounds nice, but Kathy, boundaries and limitations. There's no male talking to her. Where are you going to get the money to pay people, because you're the one who caused the inflation by excessive government spending and excessive taxes and printing money? You've made it costly. By you giving them more money, that doesn't solve the problem at all. That doesn't get them out of the ditch of inflation. You caused the inflation. Oh, I'll just give everyone $300. I'm sorry, that's a feminine mindset. Because then you want to ask the feminine mind, and I'm not, hey, males can have a feminine mindset, right? They do. And you want to ask them, male or female, where are you going to get the money to give that? Oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, that's called compassion without boundaries. Compassion without boundaries. You got to have the male principle of boundaries, and then you have the compassion with the female to be the counterpart, right? How about this? Pastor encourages congregation to defy ICE, aid, and abet illegal immigrants. That's not a dude. That's a female. That shouldn't be a pastor. But look what she's saying. We can take care, I'm going to aid and abet all illegal immigrants. That's the feminine principle without control. That's it, right there. It's out of control. This is in somewhere in France, yes. Just granted prostitutes pensions and maternity leave in the world's first of a kind. I guarantee I know where that came from. I guarantee it. That's a feminine principle. Okay? So here's the thing. The feminine principle without the masculine principle naively thinks that she can take in that which is dangerous into sacred space. That's a big one. So what did I tell you about Adam? He is supposed to be guarding the perimeter of the garden, isn't he? He is supposed to make sure serpents don't come in. Okay? But he doesn't do his job. But Eve doubles down and says, well, let him come on in. He's a nice guy. He's not going to hurt anybody. Come on in. I'll make you some food. You sit down. Now tell me, serpent, what would you like to tell me? He's still over there having a beer. He's passed out. He didn't care. So let's talk. Wrong guy to talk to. You just brought a serpent into your living room. He's not supposed to be there. But see, the feminine mind says, that's okay, I can let snakes in. Even though they're poisonous, I know how to handle snakes. I'm sure I can sit down and have a cup of tea with a serpent and he won't bite me. I know he won't. Now, wait a second. It's, like I said, it's a feminine principle. It's not necessarily just females that use that. It's males too. It's the same mentality when Joe Biden wants to do deals with Iran, right? And thinking, well, we can satisfy the Ayatollahs. They're fine if we just give them what they want. The feminine principle brings that which is poisonous into the front room. Check this out. Notice the point of similarity in all these stories. Prophetess claims Loch Ness Monster will soon be discovered, signaling global economic collapse. Charismatic prophetess says she's being targeted by real werewolves, hybrids, and shapeshifters. Prominent charismatic apostle platforms prophet Sadhu for fake Civil War prophecies. Cat-carified gap theory, charismatic prophecy explains how God destroyed the earth twice, 1,000-foot flowers. Charismatic prophecies encourages Christians to practice their exorcism skills by casting out demons out of each other. You guys are doing that tonight, right? After this? Yeah. Vatican unveils nativity scene featuring baby Jesus swaddled in the keffiyeh of the Palestinians. You see that? I told you, it's not just a female. Males can do it too. Vatican's official online calendar was sponsored by Jonathan's Tent, pro-LGBT activist group dedicated to fighting to full acceptance, inclusion, celebration of LGBT Catholics in the life of the church. The group is named Jonathan's Tent because they believe Jonathan and David had a homosexual relationship. Yeah, okay, so here's the thing. Notice the feminine principle believes it can take that which is evil and bring it inside. And even the Pope, right? He's bringing something evil inside. That's the feminine mindset. It's compassion without boundaries. There's no one saying, no. There's no one doing that. Baker insists that she frequently is taken to heaven where she speaks with God the Father directly, where he shows her the mysteries of faith. She has specifically taught that there is a body part room in heaven where severed eyeballs, skin, arms, and bones are, and that God gives her access to this room where he pulls the product from whenever she heals people. She recently declared how much she loves kissing and hugging and smelling lepers, whom she ostensibly heals by using the body parts room. It's crazy. Crazy. Prophetess says houseflies are sometimes demonic monitoring spirits who need to be bound. Okay, you get what I'm saying? Something's there. The feminine principle without the masculine principle. Naively believes that evil can be negotiated with and appeased. We can just sit down and talk with them. I know my relative's crazy, but you know what? We can still talk to them. They're crazy. Well, what do you mean? Well, you know, just bring him over for Christmas. I know he's crazy, but just bring him over. When you see that, and no male is saying, wait a second, he's crazy. We're not bringing that guy over. He's dangerous. The female won't see the danger in it. The male will. That's when you see it. Friendsgiving, dinner, and ministry, shajag show. That's what I'm talking about. Public schools are becoming literal temples of satanic idolatry with Satan clubs now popping up all over public schools in America. Yeah, we're going to send our kids there, huh? Okay, right. Methodist Christmas Eve service, Grinch lauds the importance of recycling. Transsexual porn star preaches that Joseph was a gender variant. Church was led by Dr. Sherry Naveau. There you go. Lady pastor rebukes congregation for being unhappy with Grinch as a prop. Take a chill pill if you don't like the Grinch stole Christmas. I thought Christmas was about birth of Jesus, not about the Grinch, but yet all these churches are doing the Grinch stole Christmas. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, I know. I went too long, I think.
We don't like them either.
So let's end on this one. We work through all that, and quite frankly, ladies, it's the males that drop the ball first. But don't drop the ball the second time. Don't let it be on you. You fix the Eve syndrome, and I'll work on the males on the Adam syndrome, okay? Because I'm pounding it pretty hard to the guys on that one. Okay. Lastly, the call is meant to not only benefit us, but it benefits others. So whatever your call is, it's not just for you. It's for how you're going to affect other people around you. Look what he said to Abraham, you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, I will curse those who curse you, and in all of you, the families of the earth shall be blessed. The whole idea, even Abraham and the Abrahamic covenant, is to bless other people. That's the whole purpose of it. And we just got done looking at Joseph's life, and Joseph's put in prison. What is he doing? He's making everyone's life in prison easier, right? He helps the prison guard. He's doing tasks for them. He's even serving the prisoners. He said he serves them. What's all that about? It's about this. Whatever you're called to do you bless people? Do others actually want to be around you? When they're around you, do you encourage and lift them up? And they're like, man, I can't wait to be around that person. They're awesome. Do you make people's lives easier or harder? Do you get along with others as much as it is possible? Do you play well with others? One further thing about discipleship too, do you show how others fit into the program of God and his agenda? Oh, that would be a step of discipleship, yeah. You got to ask your hard questions. Am I isolated, or do people like being around me? Do I irritate people? You got to be honest with yourself. Because part of your calling is going to include others. It has to. There's no other way around it. It's to bless other people. I like this one. A fragrance your enemies can't resist. Now, this is not just a meme. This is real. This is real. It's real cologne and real perfume. I looked it up. No joke. No joke, man. It just got released. It's true. It's for Christmas. You can buy it. It is, they have it for men, they have it for women. Okay. The funny thing about it is they used the picture of Jill Biden looking at Trump at Notre Dame, okay? And her face says, a picture says 1,000 words, right? This is supposed to be her enemy. But she has look at the face. So, no pun intended, this is the cologne, and so the Trump campaign capitalized on this picture, and this is the meme that went out to sell their cologne and their perfume. A fragrance your enemies can't resist. That's good. That's smart marketing, man. That is smart. But what's my point? My point is, are you the fragrance, okay, that even your enemies can't resist, okay? That even though Jill Biden supposedly hates Trump, do your enemies look at you like that? You see what I'm saying? There's a thing where even your enemies, if they don't like you, they will at least respect you. And if you live your life that way, integrated into God's program, and you're doing the will of God, even your enemies will have to acknowledge that, at least respect you for what you're doing. They don't have to like you, but they can at least respect you. And that picture says it all. Anyway, I'll end on that. That's enough for tonight. I got myself in trouble. I'll let Monica take over from here.